weather means that there could be some conclusions, at least in the next few months, and then the government processes to move ahead with implementation. We believe that some of these things could help turn around the current weak economic growth and provide some higher path on growth in the medium term. So growth is really key to stabilizing the ratings.
Gardner Rusike is an analyst with Standard & Poor's. Now, the verdict by ratings agencies is neither the beginning nor the end of South Africa's economic woes. That's according to Professor André Roux. He's the author of Everyone's Guide to the South African Economy and economist at the University of Stellenbosch Business School. He joins me now from our studios in Cape Town to discuss that in some detail. André, thanks for your time this evening. Your view on S&P's decision, you've just heard from the analyst as well.
Yes, I think it was pretty much on the cards. The consensus seemed to have been status quo. It's almost like being shown a yellow card on warning, give us a benefit of the doubt and see what happens by the end of the year.
But obviously, this is just a stay and a bit of a pause towards us having to really make some key changes in our economy. Do you think that this crisis has actually focused our minds, would you say?
You know, I'd like to think so. The biggest risk, of course, now would be that various people might be seduced into a sense of complacency. Hopefully not, because there are some very real structural issues that need to be addressed. It's not to say all is doom and gloom, but I think we need to realize that to some extent the pretty good growth we recorded some 10 years ago was in part driven by consumer spending, which in turn was financed by debt. And now we do find ourselves as a nation in a kind of we've become a nation of debtors, not only government debt, which we all know about. We import more than we export, so foreign debt is rising.
Yeah.
And we mustn't forget that households, their debt has gone up from around about 55% of household income back in 2004, reaching close to 90%. So in general, I say we're living beyond our means. And that's not something we can sustain forever and ever.
And what's happening on the productive side of the economy?
Well, there, of course, is another fundamental story. The labor market in general, the mechanics of the labor market, unemployment, unsatisfactory productivity growth, and perhaps more importantly, wage increases in excess of productivity growth, are all compromising our competitiveness. You know, to go back to real basics, economic growth is determined by the quantity and the quality of a country's production factors. And I must hasten to add, it's not only labor which is not being productive enough. It's what we call total factor productivity.
Yeah.
In general, we're not really marrying all our production factors in the most efficient way possible.
We can't forget that we are an open economy. We are obviously vulnerable to the vagaries of the global economy. How much of that has actually also impacted on the current slowdown that we're facing at the moment?
Yeah, well, certainly must be playing a big role. Yes, we are indeed an open economy, which is always a double-edged sword. It's great to be an open economy when your trade partners are growing handsomely, and of course in our case when resource prices are moving upwards. It does catch up on us when the reverse happens. So our major trading partners tend to be Western Europe, where growth remains sluggish, China, where growth, as we know, is slowing down. Coupled to that, as we all know, the fairly significant decline in commodity prices has hit our export side most significantly, and exports make up a good chunk of our total economic activity. And talking about these kind of external factors, let's not forget the impact of the drought on the economy.
Yeah. Certainly, and that's something that was also mentioned in the statement. I wonder, though, how much room, André, that our authorities have to maneuver, both the fiscal authorities and the monetary authorities. It seems that, particularly on the monetary side, they've thrown everything in and every piece of ammunition that they have.
Well, with perhaps more to come. Yes, you're quite right. You see, we find ourselves, unlike, you might recall back in 2009, heading for a recession, but fiscal policy, it was possible to relax it. It was stimulatory because our debt levels were nice and low. Inflation was behaving itself. We saw a drop in interest rates, reaching at one stage a 40-year low. Unfortunately, today we have the sad combination of declining growth and yet rising prices, which is always problematic for policymakers. Now, we know they obviously cannot use fiscal policy to stimulate the economy. That will just really put the cat amongst the pigeons in terms of high levels of government debt. Meanwhile, the Reserve Bank has a constitutional mandate to keep inflation under control. So the inflation figures moving above 6%, they have almost no choice but to maintain a tight monetary policy. So the prospects of monetary policy, lower interest rates coming to our consumer rescue in the next few months must be slim to zero.
Do you think we have the will for the kind of structural reform we need to put in place?
I think we do. I think if we think back over the last few decades, the South African economy has been remarkably resilient in very trying circumstances. Having said that, the will might be there, but there is no quick fix. And that's not to say all is doom and gloom. I think it's also important to remember the longer-term picture. If we look at the wood and not the trees, very good positives as well in our economy, in our society.
We'll leave it there. Thanks for your time this evening, Professor André Roux, author of Everyone's Guide to the South African Economy, also economist at the University of Stellenbosch Business School. Now, the drought has affected sugar producers, with Illovo Sugar reporting a 36.5% drop in full-year profits. The sugar maker says a direct and indirect drought impacted all 6 countries that it operates in. Currency volatility and high interest rates were some of the factors weighing heavily on results. Illovo, which operates in South Africa, Mozambique, Tanzania, Malawi, Zambia and Swaziland, said the drop was within guidance. The company says the persistent dry conditions across the region and poor summer rainfall will further delay sugar production recovery during the 2016-2017 season. Wage negotiations in the platinum sector are around the corner. The National Union of Mine Workers has been tipped to demand a 20% wage increase for the next 2 years. According to Anglo-American Platinum, NUM represents around 20% of its workforce, while the majority are with rival Association of Mine Workers and Construction Union. The existing 3-year wage deal expires at the end of June. Platinum firms are still reeling from the effects of the record 5-month strike in 2014 led by AMCU. In 2014, workers agreed to a 20% annual increase. AB InBev isn't keeping its beverage business in one crate. The world's largest beer maker is collaborating with Starbucks to bottle and distribute its brand of tea. The move will help Starbucks broaden its reach beyond coffee. The company has been making a push in recent years to find new avenues of growth. AB InBev will fill capacity at breweries while its US beer volumes have been falling. This gives its network of more than 500 distributors a non-alcoholic beverage to sell. Ready-to-drink tea is one of the fastest growing beverage categories in the US, with consumption rising by over 6% last year. The brand Teavana will go on sale at 300,000 stores and supermarkets. Africa's tourism industry is set to get a massive investment boost. One of the world's leading hotel groups is looking at doubling its capacity on the continent, with 3 brand new hotels planned for South Africa. It's estimated that the project will create 4,500 jobs in Africa by 2020.